Welcome to The Explainer. You know, a few years back, the world literally locked down, and we saw this massive, global pivot to digital learning. It was a monumental shift. But while we're always talking about how high schoolers or college kids adapted, we almost never talk about the youngest, most vulnerable learners out there. So today, we're going right back to the foundational level, kindergarten, to see exactly what happens when you completely replace a physical, buzzing classroom with a glowing digital screen.
Because it really boils down to this one profound question. How do you effectively teach a 5-year-old through a computer screen? It's a massive logistical and developmental puzzle. This wasn't just some fun theoretical debate, right? This was the exact urgent dilemma that educators and parents worldwide faced practically overnight. I mean, can a child who is literally just figuring out how to hold a pencil truly benefit from a virtual learning setup? Let's find out.
Here is our roadmap for today. First, the kindergarten digital shift. Then, connectivism and e-learning, followed by the e-learning advantages, the digital disconnects, and finally, the improvement blueprint.
Section 1. The kindergarten digital shift, moving from classroom to screen.
Just wrap your head around this number for a second. The COVID-19 pandemic forced over 1.7 billion students out of physical classrooms globally. That is absolutely staggering. We're talking over 80% of the world's enrolled students abruptly cut off from their normal learning environments. In response to this totally unprecedented crisis, governments everywhere had to deploy emergency remote learning strategies, leaning heavily on online solutions just to prevent a total collapse of the educational system. To truly understand the ground-level impact of this shift, we're unpacking a really fascinating 2025 academic study from the International Journal of Psychology and Education. Now, instead of looking at sweeping, vague, global generalizations, this study zeroes in on a very specific microcosm, the Reverend Wilson B. Basic School in the Mfont-Semen municipality of Ghana. Looking at a targeted case study like this is brilliant because it lets us see the very real, practical impacts of e-learning on actual kindergartners.
Interestingly, the number 24 represents the exact number of teachers surveyed at this school. The researchers used a complete census technique here. What that means is they achieved a remarkable 100% response rate from the educators. This gives the data we're about to dive into incredible localized validity. We aren't just looking at a random sample, we are hearing from literally every single teacher at this institution.
These respondents were highly balanced too, 54.2% male and 45.8% female. Plus, the data shows that the vast majority of these teachers had between 1 and 10 years of teaching experience. So, the insights we're gathering today come from seasoned professionals. These are people who are very familiar with traditional teaching, but who are actively on the front lines navigating this crazy digital transition.
Section 2. Connectivism and e-learning, wiring the young mind.
Okay, so the crucial foundation here is a theory known as connectivism. In a traditional classroom, learning mostly flows one way, from the teacher directly to the student. But connectivism suggests that in our modern digital era, learning actually occurs outside the individual through connections within digital networks. E-learning platforms use exciting interactive nodes. Think educational games, interactive videos, and digital quizzes. By clicking and navigating these nodes, a child isn't just mindlessly memorizing facts, they are building productive engagement and naturally developing core technological expertise just by interacting with the system.
Section 3. The e-learning advantages, surprising digital benefits.
So what actually went right? Out of a maximum score of 5, the absolute highest rated positive impact was the development of tech expertise, scoring a massive 4.5. Simply by using the platforms, these young kids became highly proficient with digital devices. Right behind that, scoring 4.3, was self-paced learning. E-learning let children learn comfortably at their own individual speeds, which is a massive advantage for early cognitive development. Tied at 4.3 was an improvement in hand-eye coordination, heavily honed by all those touchscreen swipes and mouse clicks. And the advantages didn't stop at those top 3. The teachers reported this awesome rapid-fire list of benefits. E-learning enhanced mathematical skills and, get this surprisingly enough, improved social competence and communication skills as children learned to interact through digital mediums. The highly visual, interactive nature of these online tools seriously boosted their motivation and curiosity. And since research shows that up to 80% of children are visual learners, the colorful, dynamic interfaces of these platforms actually help the kindergartners retain complex information way more effectively than standard textbook methods.
Section 4. The digital disconnects, the cost of the virtual classroom.
But, as we know, it wasn't all sunshine and rainbows. There's a really stark contrast between the high-tech dream and the grounded reality. The theoretical ideal of connectivism promises this self-paced, flexible, globally connected learning utopia. However, the reality on the ground for these 5-year-olds was a severe loss of human interaction. The teachers overwhelmingly noted that this lack of face-to-face contact directly and negatively affected the actual quality of learning. You just simply cannot digitize the warmth and intuitive guidance of an in-person kindergarten teacher.
When you break down the localized realities, the hurdles are incredibly steep. The lack of technical expertise among both parents and teachers scored a high 4.2 out of 5 as a major barrier, totally ruining educational quality. Then there's the friction of cost. Requiring expensive devices like laptops and smartphones placed a huge financial burden on parents. Infrastructure was a massive headache too. Unstable internet connections frequently disrupted lessons, especially for families living in hilly areas where cell signals are notoriously awful. Plus, teachers found it nearly impossible to accurately assess a child's physical and motor development through a tiny webcam, and many noted a seriously increased sense of isolation among the kids.
Now here's where we get to do a bit of myth-busting, and this is super interesting. There's so much global discourse out there claiming that early screen time destroys a child's mental health or completely erodes societal culture. Well, in this specific study, the teachers strongly disagreed with those claims. When asked if e-learning caused mental issues or negatively affected the culture of the society, those supposed impacts scored an incredibly low 1.7 out of 5. So, while the logistical and isolation hurdles are absolutely real, the catastrophic mental health fears just weren't validated in this specific kindergarten setting.
Section 5. The Improvement Blueprint, Fixing the E-Learning Ecosystem.
So how do we actually fix this flawed but promising system? The researchers laid out a very cohesive 5-step methodology. First off, administrators must actively involve teachers in the planning phase. You can't just drop new software on their desks and expect miracles. Second, we need real hardware support, smart boards, and subsidized, reliable internet. Add to that vigilant, constant monitoring, comprehensive training for absolutely everyone involved, and a genuine push toward productive internet use. Combine all that, and you've got a supportive ecology that actually works.
This quote from the researchers pretty much hits the nail on the head. It beautifully summarizes the two sides of the coin we've been exploring today. E-learning platforms possess the capacity to significantly enhance the quality of teaching and learning, limited by the absence of adequate human interaction. It's a tool of immense, incredible potential, but it is forever tethered to our fundamental human need for connection.
Which brings us to our final thought for the day. As e-learning inevitably becomes a permanent fixture in basic education, the real question isn't whether we should use it, but how. Are we prepared to build an educational system where technology deliberately enhances rather than attempts to completely replace the human touch? It's a super delicate balance, and it's one that educators, parents, and society will be navigating for generations to come. Thanks so much for joining me for this explainer, and always keep questioning how we learn.